Welcome to Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft, the founder and CEO of Judith Heft and Associates Financial and Lifestyle Concierge. This year, they're celebrating 26 years in business. In every episode, Judy interviews professionals who help others successfully manage their financial lives. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Judy is the author of 2 books, How to Be Smart, Successful, and Organized with Your Money for a Better Today and Tomorrow, and her latest book, Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles, How to Successfully Manage Money in Every Decade of Life. You can read chapters of her books and catch prior episodes of this show at www.judithheft.com. Now here's the host of Mastering Your Financial Life, Judy Heft.
Hey there.
Hello.
Hello, Avani. I'm excited to have you as my 14th guest. Avani is Managing Director at Francis Financial. She helps clients set up a financial strategy by helping them plan for either retirement or, estate planning, whatever else they need to do. She's a wealth manager, and she specializes in women that are going through divorce and widowhood. And, one thing about Avani, that I really love is you really bring compassion to your clients. You work with them, you have empathy. And I think that's so important when we as women are going through these tough times in our lives. We need a great team to back us up. So I'm really happy to have you here as a guest, and we're going to talk about some of these issues that come up. So, did I leave anything out in introducing you?
No, thank you for having me here. We do love what we do. I work for Francis Financial. We're a boutique wealth management firm. So it's really amazing to be able to work with women who are going through these really difficult transitions in their lives and to bring them to the other side and, help them feel more confident and empowered around their money.
It's so wonderful that you do that. We work with a lot of women in that same situation, and it's so devastating. It's great to have someone like you on their team. Losing a loved one is really overwhelming sometimes. And, when you have to handle the finances and feel everything, you just don't know where to begin. And it's great. So what are 3 important things that you like to suggest and advise to your clients that are going through these emotions?
So when we talk about the death of a loved one, a spouse, the first thing you do is, of course, after making the funeral arrangements and things like that, I think the first thing we tell our clients is don't take any big decisions. Don't make any big changes to your life. Don't sell a house, buy a house, make, just some of these things. You're in such an emotional time at that time that invariably these decisions are very emotionally driven. And then, a few months down the road, you may regret making those decisions. So one of the things we say is, please don't make any big decisions. Do nothing, really. The second piece, which is very important, is that if you have joint accounts, so checking, savings accounts, try to get the money out of there. Withdraw that money there. First of all, you're going to need it, right? For maybe the funeral or any other immediate expenses. But the second piece is that once a financial institution hears that your spouse is no more, they put a lock on it. So you can't really get to the money unless you do a certain process and follow certain, process. And that could take days, if not weeks. So it's important. And if you have this opportunity to even if you know of an imminent death, you should try to withdraw this cash even before the death. That's ideal. So that's the second piece. And
let me just interrupt you there for a minute, though, Avani. So does that happen if it's not a joint account? If it's a joint account, do they freeze it also? Or if that's really?
Yeah. Yeah, there is. They did just, just for safeguarding so that there's no
Right,
fraud and things like that. Of course, in the individual accounts too,
right.
get frozen, but even joint accounts.
Oh, okay, that's
So
good to know. I didn't realize that joint accounts got frozen too.
yeah, yeah, things like safe deposit boxes and things like
Right.
that. Just sort of get all this out while especially in case of an imminent death, while you are able to get it all out, just get it out. And then, of course, the next piece is informing insurers, any life insurance policies and things like that in the decedent's name, or decedent's name. Those you should inform the insurers, get that process moving. And they'll need paperwork to the death certificate and all that. So that's the third thing that we ask our clients to do.
That's really helpful. I know that you have, I think they're on your website, these financial checklists or things to do. And those
Yeah.
things, how do people access those? Those are really helpful.
Yes. So on our website, which is www.francisfinancial.com, on the top right, there is a drop down for resources. So we have two wonderful resources. One is for widows. That's the most recent one. So any recent widows, they have a white paper that we wrote, like a resource guide that we've written. It has a whole wealth of information about what it is that they might need to do, and who can be on their support team, and who they should have on their support team. There are checklists. So there's a wealth of information in that resource guide. And then we also have a white paper and a document for someone going through divorce. Again, a wealth of information for women going through divorce.
That's so helpful. And you know what? I've learned or I've noticed, going through a divorce is like a death too. It's a different kind of death. It's such a big loss, so
Yeah.
it's really difficult. So what are certain documents, specific documents that need to be collected during this time? I know the death certificate, of course. How many of those do you recommend people get?
At least 3 to 4, because
Mhm.
everyone I mean, get 10 actually, because you'll have to give them to financial institutions, insurance brokers, if your spouse was employed, to the employers. Like, there's just everyone asks for one. So, get quite a few so that you don't have to keep going back for it.
Mhm.
The other documents that people, like, immediately after the passing, you might want to get your hands on, if you have a cemetery plot deed,
Mm.
if you made any prepaid cremation expenses, if you prepaid them, get those documents. Of course, the last will, that
Right.
that last will and testament. So get the original. People will want the original, and then get copies too. Um, One thing I want to caution is that when you're trying to make a copy, make sure you don't tear out the binding of the copy, because that invalidates the will. So it's
Yeah.
very important to keep that bound original copy. And even if you're making or bound original, and then when you're making copies, to not take out that binding. um, so copies of the wills, copies of any trusts, any life insurance policy documents, checking and savings accounts, any retirement accounts, all financial account statements, your deed of your home, of course, homeowners insurance, any car insurance, just all that paperwork you do need to collect.
Well, that's so
on
much.
those.
And, that's great that you are able to advise people because there's so many things that you mentioned that will probably slip through the cracks and then you're scrambling around trying to find these things. It's really helpful. That's good information. Thank you. So what if the spouse is working? Then what, and there's some retirement account. How does that work? Because I know that those beneficiaries are different than the ones in the will, or they could be the same, but they don't go together necessarily.
Right. So the retirement account. So if your spouse is working, I mean, of course, the first thing to do would be to contact the employer. The employer is going to want to know the name, social security number, date of death, if the death was due to an accident, or what the cause might have been, or an illness. Um, they need so all this information, because you can have a lot of benefits that are eligible to get. Most employers have some kind of an insurance policy on their employees. So whatever that is, it may or may not be very large, but it could be significant to help you through your expenses. So informing, and then they start processing paperwork for the 401k accounts you mentioned. Those beneficiaries, we have to make sure that those beneficiary designations, that's who they will pass to. So whoever is named as beneficiaries will get the proceeds from those accounts. And that's why it's important from time to time to check who your beneficiaries are, because it doesn't follow the same beneficiaries as the will. So that's an important piece. Yeah, so those types of that's what's important to get to the employer, your spouse's employer. And then of course, if you're employed, you need to tell your employer as well, bereavement leave and all those things get kicked in then.
Oh, that's helpful. So, we talked, so that's mostly about widowhood, but what if it's someone that's going through a divorce? Now, they might have been able to plan for it. It's not usually as spontaneous as a sudden passing away, but a divorce, usually you've got well, maybe you don't always have your ducks in a row, but you're thinking about it. And there are so many non-moneyed spouses. We have found that they don't know any user IDs and passwords. They don't know where the bank accounts are kept. They're in the dark. And so, what do you suggest to someone that's thinking about going through a divorce and really is the non-moneyed partner?
Yeah, try to get your hands on any financial documents that you can. Now, divorce is a legal procedure, right? So by law, your soon to be ex will be required to provide documentation. So, from a legal perspective, you have that assurance that, hey, this ex, soon to be ex, will need to provide information on all the financial accounts, and life insurance and all those pieces. But before you get divorced, you might want to actually talk to a financial advisor if you feel anxious about what your life might look like beyond the divorce. And that period is not, nobody's legally bound to produce any information. So it is good to get your hands on all the financial information that you can, without raising any suspicion, so to speak.
And then how do you help these, women, particularly mostly women, I think, you know, with their finances? How do you advise them? What do you suggest that they do? I think sometimes, especially the non-moneyed spouse, they don't know where to begin.
It is tough, and these women, they are very smart. It's not
Oh,
like they're, you know
absolutely.
it's we've come across executives at firms, and law partners at law firms, um, very high ranking executives at financial services firms. And somehow, women tend to, I think, just growing up, they tend to be left out of the conversations around money so much. There is no, um, nobody thinks about educating women about money and helping them feel more comfortable. So they grow up many times just feeling uncomfortable around money, not knowing enough, or feeling like they don't know enough.
Right.
And when there is someone else to delegate all that to, it's so easy to just tell your spouse, hey, you take care of the money, I'll take care of things that interest me. And that's totally valid, right? Like in any
Right.
relationship, you divide and conquer because there is so much to do. But it is so important. We keep telling women it is so important to keep in touch, have financial date nights, and get to know what's happening to your money. What's your income? What are your expenses? Are you doing okay? Are you saving enough during the marriage? When you're looking at divorce, it becomes a little tricky because if you haven't done this while you were married, it can get to a point where you just don't know enough about what's happening with your finances. But that's the time when you need to reach out to an advisor or some confidant that who can tell you how life might look like beyond the divorce and help you feel some type of reassurance.
Yeah, it's so important because I think that a lot of people going through divorce think it's going to cost them half as much to live, but it really doesn't. You still have to
Really
take care of your
doesn't.
home and yourself and your children, and it can be
Correct.
very overwhelming and frustrating.
And
So,
And what's more interesting is that that income that was supporting one household now needs to actually support two households.
right.
So, for sure, unfortunately, the standard of living after divorce usually goes down,
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely true. I've seen that a lot. And then people don't know how to cope.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a little break now, and then we'll come back and talk some more, Avni. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Hey there. I just want to tell you a little bit about my new book that just came out called Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles. And here it is. It's how to successfully manage your money in every decade of life. I co-authored this with my CFO, Liz Levy. And together we created this manual that's going to help you through every stage of life. We talk about having a baby. We talk about young adulthood, pre-retirement, what to do when you're at that age of retirement. If you're contemplating divorce, do you need an estate plan? We cover all of these, each subject in a different chapter. And I really think that you're going to find this so helpful because at the end of every chapter, we have checklists that you can look at and you can use, and they can be a guide for you. So this is a wonderful manual that we've created. It's available on Amazon. You can also find it on our website at judithheft.com/book. And we're here for you. If you need anything, reach out. I hope you enjoy the book. Here's another picture of it, just so you know what's going on. Here it is. And I'm really proud of it. It's my second book. And I'd love to have you read it and give me your feedback. Judy Heft, judithheft.com, financial and lifestyle concierge, celebrating 26 years in business. And over the years, I've learned so much. And what I've been trying to do is impart a little bit of this knowledge to you so I can help all of you become as financially organized as I am. And we're back. Hi, Avni. I love what you said, financial date night. I wish I had known that 30 years ago during my marriage, because we'd really, the finances weren't there, and we was struggling all the time, and we would take turns paying the bills like every three. And even though I was the moneymaker and the financial person, we still would take turns back and forth, but we never really sat down and had those, I think it's like a business meeting, but I like financial date night better. It just sounds like it's more fun.
Yeah, open a bottle of wine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then try to talk calmly about it, because sometimes when you're struggling financially, there's stress and you get angry and you might be blaming the other person, back and forth. So I love that, financial date night. That's really cool. A really great term. So so I also, we got a new client actually just yesterday, a woman who is a very high ranking financial professional. And she suddenly became a widow and left with two teenagers. And it's only been a few weeks for her, and she's overwhelmed. And her quote to me was, in the 17 years I've been married, I never bought a tube of toothpaste, because he was a stay-at-home dad and did everything. So she has no clue about any of the finances. And she really is a high-ranking financial professional. But she gave all her power away because, like we said before, division of responsibility. So I think in hindsight, it might have been better if she had a better understanding and was able to communicate that, to her husband at the time. But it worked for them. But then, catastrophe happened, and there she is not knowing what to do. So hopefully we're going to be able to help her and get her organized with some stuff. But so one of the things, who are some of the people that someone should have on their support team, because there's so many different industries out there helping, and it's important to know who to reach out to and who to trust.
Yeah. Especially when you're going through a difficult time, like the death of a spouse, it is so important to have professionals around you, and even, of course, close friends and family who you trust and who provide that support to you. But have at least 3 or 4 people that you can go to with questions, with anything you don't understand, with a follow-up, relying on those people to be able to help you see what the next step is and help you get there and do that next step. So one of the most important people on your on your team, support team, is a financial advisor.
Absolutely.
They're the one who will shepherd the interactions that you might need to have with different people on your team. They're the one keeping everything together, keeping the ball moving forward, getting you to do the next steps. So that the financial advisor is a key element in your support team. The next person is an estate planning attorney. The will need to be probated. You have to go through a whole process to be able to get money out of the estate and how to settle the estate. So the estate needs to pay off its expenses, any debts that might be there. And the estate planning attorney helps you understand what these different pieces are and what is written in the will. If there is a will, what's written in the will and what needs to be done. And if there isn't a will, which is a difficult position to be in, they will help you understand what the state requirements are and then help you with how to meet those state regulations and requirements. The third and very important part, again, a piece of this support team is a therapist, just a mental health professional who can help you process this grief. I mean, even if you know that someone is going to pass away soon, right? That death is imminent. There is still grief. There is so much to be processed. So having a mental health professional, a therapist or counselor, whomever you choose to work with, is very important as well.
Absolutely. And didn't you tell me once that you studied some grief counseling? What was that? I can't remember.
Yes. So we went through a grief counselors training program. So this program was teaching grief counselors how to take someone through their grief journey. And of course, we don't practice as grief counselors, but we see so much grief in the work that we do, that it's important to have those skills on what might somebody be thinking about. How do you help someone who is going through this grief and they feel like they're in a fog? They may not be able to function on a daily basis. They may not be able to comprehend the information you're giving them. They may ask you over and over again because their brain fog is preventing that understanding. And so it was just an amazing training to have, just as background for someone who's working with clients going through grief.
Yeah, that's so great that you did that. I'm really impressed that you have that background, because it's really hard to be compassionate sometimes, like, because you're not really in that emotion and you think, maybe they just need to get a grip, but it's not that easy. I know for me, my mom passed away, and 2 weeks later I had to be out of my marital house because we were going through the divorce. And it was just like so much. It took me a long time. I knew I'd be fine when I got to the other end because it was a mutual that we both wanted it and it was a good thing. But it was just going through it was so difficult, and dealing with all that grief at one time. I'm grateful that I had a really good therapist to help me. And I was actually in some group therapy too, which really helped with other women going through the same thing. So I think it's, there's a stigma. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because it can't hurt. And, take what you like and leave the rest. And, there's people out there that can help, whether it's the financial piece, the emotional piece, whatever that is. It's great to have someone like you on their team that understands about this and knows how to cope. So this is great. So thank you, Avani. I'm so happy to have you as a guest today. I love talking to you anyway, and it's great to have you. I think it's a lot of really helpful information here that hopefully people will take away with them. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
It's a pleasure.
You've been listening to Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others. You can read chapters of Judy's books and catch prior episodes of Mastering Your Financial Life at www.judithheft.com.